I don't enjoy you, and you know you don't enjoy.
Hi, this is AF Charters for A Critical State. Today you join us in the city-state of the City of London. You heard correctly. This is a city-state. It's not part of the UK in the proper jurisdiction, okay? So we're going to be talking today to Dom and Vin from Standing in Commerce. So let's go to the Fire of London, which is what the monument here commemorates. This is a major historical event that happened in 1666, and there's a lot of hidden history that you need to know about this. So here I am walking into Pudding Lane. This is a really historic place, and I'm joined by a couple of gentlemen who are going to fill us in on some of the history. So I have Dr. Dominic here from Standing in Commerce, nice to meet you, and I have Vincent, who's also going to be filling us in on the judicial system and law. So first of all, we're going to move over to Dominic because he's studied in great detail what has been happening here in London in 1666. And I don't mean just what was happening here in Pudding Lane, but events that were happening off camera, shall we say, in Westminster.
But we like the idea of making it better, but we just can't be bothered. So what more can we do? Yes, we like the idea of making it better, but we just can't be bothered.
So Dominic, Pudding Lane, the Great Fire of London, 1666. We learn about this in our school history. Some of us that live close enough, like myself, will be lucky enough to do a trip to come and see Pudding Lane, where the bakery was set light. We'd hear about the Great Plague and how it was a terrible event.
Absolutely. But just like when Rome burned, when London burned, there were great changes happening over in Parliament, not so far from here.
What kind of changes were those?
Well, the subrogation of men and women's rights.
In what way were they subrogated?
Well, there was an act passed. It's like when Rome burned, when London burned, there were great changes happening over in Parliament, not so far from here.
What kind of changes were those?
Well, the subrogation of men and women's rights.
In what way were they subrogated?
Well, there was an act passed whilst London was burning.
Right. So literally while the fire is burning down here?
Well, it takes a long time to bring a statute to the books.
Right.
It takes a lot of architecture and a lot of thinking by the judiciary, and then to debate it through Parliament.
Sure.
And obviously the Black Death was carried on for quite some time here.
Certainly.
But the question I would ask is, what was the Cestui Que Vie Act of 1666 being put on the statute books whilst, the proverbial hell was happening on the streets of London?
Now, for those of you who are not quite sure what this act is that Dominic has just talked about, we will actually be putting links on the website and probably bringing up information about this at the end of the show. So don't worry if you can't follow the intricate detail. It's much more important to understand the bigger picture. So Dominic, this Cestui Que Act, what did it actually say?
Well, after several hundred readings, we finally came to the conclusion that it would appear that all of the citizens, all the men and women of the United Kingdom were declared dead and lost beyond the seas.
What does that mean then?
Well, the state took everybody and everybody's property into trust, and the state became the trustee husband behind all the owns all the titles to both the people and their property.
So the state took control by saying everyone is dead,
and until a living man or woman comes back and claims their titles, and when they do prove that they are alive, then the titles can be revested and they can claim for damages.
Okay, so essentially where we are right now is that still today, here in 2009, that legally speaking, you and I, on camera, we are dead.
Absolutely, because you didn't claim your titles back after 7 years, as it says in the statutes.
Wait a minute, 7 years after 1666?
7 years after you were born.
Oh really? So I have time from when I'm born to when I'm 7 to claim.
Yes. Otherwise, you are dead beyond reasonable doubt.
Okay,
And therefore, the state takes your property and your body into trust.
that's fascinating. And this all came about as a result of the Great Fire.
Well, it could be a bit of a smokescreen.
Right. That's a nice metaphor. So the Sesticate Act fundamentally underlines that you or I are dead. Now, does that have anything to do with when we go to court and we're not allowed to represent ourselves?
Absolutely. We're starting to see the beginning of the creation of a legal fiction of a dead entity.
What is a legal fiction?
Is a construct on paper. So when you get a bill or a summons from a court, it's always in capital letters.
Right.
Now, last time I went into a graveyard, all of the on all the graves, all the names, all the men and women were in capital letters.
Right.
That's mortmain, probate, death.
Right.
So the state or the corporation that writes to you in all capital letters is writing to a dead legal fiction.
So do I have a legal fiction?
A legal fiction was created when your mother informed the state or the Registrar General that there was a new vessel in town when you were birthed. So you have a birth certificate just like a ship.
Now, a birth certificate is spelled B-I-R-T-H, but we're talking about a berth, as in B-E-R-T-H, which is where you would moor a boat. Is that correct?
Correct. Now, your mother had a birth canal,
Right.
just like a ship.
Okay, so
I think you could say that beyond reasonable doubt that the legal fiction is classified as a vessel, and as we now understand, is floating on the sea of commerce.
so I'm an actor in commerce.
Yes, you have a legal fiction which allows you to operate in commerce, and it was created when your mother and father registered you and got a birth certificate from the Registrar General.
But they didn't know anything about this, right?
They didn't know anything about it. They just thought that they were doing the same thing as happened before in the 18th century and before, where people would go to the church and ask the priest or the vicar to give them a slip of paper and put them into the local registry in the church and give them a copy for their own Holy Bible at home.
So when did this change over?
In about 1837, when the Births, Deaths and Marriages Act and the post of Registrar General came into being, and his job was to collect all of the records from all the churches.
Now, the word regus I find very interesting because register comes from regus. That means the Queen
Absolutely.
or the Crown. So that would actually mean that children are property of the Crown. Is that correct?
The legal fictions are indeed.
So does that have any ramifications for our viewers?
Well, the Registrar General holds everybody in custody.
So essentially everyone that is a UK citizen, registered with a passport, national insurance number, etc., is essentially in custody.
That's right.
But being in custody typically is something that you think of as the police doing when you've done something wrong. But that doesn't necessarily mean that custody in the way that you're using it is a bad thing.
No, the creation of the legal entity, sometimes known as a straw man or a straw party, allows men and women, one, to function in commerce, and two, to accept the benefit privileges provided by the state.
What kind of things
Such
are
as
that?
national health insurance, national insurance, the dole, clothes, food, heat.
Right.
No, it don't enjoy nothing about being me and you.
So what we're actually talking about is that we are in custody, we don't know that we have a legal fiction, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, because the majority of the people in this country and everybody that operates this system worldwide under the International Monetary Fund, we hope that the vast majority of people are fed, sheltered and watered. But unfortunately, as we start seeing these systems break down and not operate to the benefits of the people, this is where things start going wrong.
Fine, so it's entirely possible that these systems have changed over the years and become more draconian and unfair against men and women.
Like myself and Vincent will say, itself is neutral and can be operated for the benefits of men and women. It all depends on the level of education of the men and women in society and who is pulling the levers.
Absolutely. That's an important point. We still have legally elected representatives. The system that we're operating in is just not the same system that we understand it to be. It's a parallel system, and we have to understand exactly who we are as individuals and how we can operate in this system, and that's what we're going to be looking out for throughout the show with Vincent and also with Dominic.
That we cannot face alone. So I hope that you find what it is you're looking for. Yes, I hope that you find what it is you're looking for.
The City of London is renowned worldwide for being a centre for markets. Now, markets is where merchants work. So there's mercantile law. Now, mercantile law is based on admiralty. So if we look around us, particularly here in the city, we can find a great deal of symbols that relate to admiralty.
'Cause you are beautiful to me, I can't deny. See, there are some things that we cannot face alone. So I hope that you find what it is you're looking for.
We're still here in the city-state of London, but we've just taken a short walk from Pudding Lane, down King William Street in fact, to the Bank of England. Now Dominic, the Bank of England is quite an important piece to understand in all of this, because surely this is the People's Bank, isn't it?
Well, we believe it was the People's Bank in 1946 when it was taken from private hands, allegedly, into the public. But unfortunately, as it says in the statutes, the shareholders from private Bank of England did a one-to-one stock swap with the new bank. So the private shareholders are still the public, are the shareholders of the public bank.
So on the news, we're forever hearing about the Bank of England and how it's going to be issuing currency and doing things for the people of the United Kingdom. So is this actually our bank?
Well, the building might be the People's Bank of England, but in 1946, when it was taken into the public, there was a one-to-one stock swap with the private shareholders from the private Bank of England. Therefore, even though the bank building itself might be in public hands, the shareholders, of whom I've yet to find a list, are private.
So you're saying that where we are at the moment is that the Bank of England serves interests other than those of the people of the United Kingdom, i.e. a list of potential investors whose names remain private?
It could well be, Adrian. And if you look at the definition of the word "of" in a legal dictionary, it can also mean without.
So that means the bank without England?
Correct.
What does that actually mean?
Well, it would appear that the Bank of England behaves in the same manner that the Federal Reserve does, which is known to be a private bank that issues private currency.
So if an organisation is issuing private currency, the interest that it puts on it, where does that actually go?
Well, that's a question for another day, Adrian, because I think it might create too much controversy. But, you know, we can talk about that at a later time.
Absolutely. So the currency that's issued by the Bank of England, which at the moment is the sole organisation able to issue currency in this country, is that backed by anything like gold? I mean, this is a pretty substantial building.
It used to be backed by gold until about 1914, where you could go in and take a £5 note or a £10 note into the Bank of England and have it redeemed by gold or silver coin.
The 1914 is quite an important historical date because it's the start of the First World War.
I don't enjoy you, and you know you don't enjoy me. We know we don't enjoy nothing about being me and you.
Right, so up until that date, I would have been able to take in a £5 note and get £5 worth of gold or silver coins.
Yes, or a certificate for it.
And nowadays, if I go in there and take a £5 note in there, what will they give me back?
A £5 note.
And what's that backed on? What's that backed with?
Well, if it's not backed by gold or silver, then the only thing that it can be backed by is the population's labour, past, present and future, which is represented by your birth certificate. We as a population have been pledged to the IMF as the surety to pay back the creditors in the global bankruptcy.
That's an interesting point that you know. You say global bankruptcy, so are you suggesting that we are bankrupt?
Men and women are not bankrupt. Men
Right.
and women are the only source of credit, but the public is bankrupt and all the corporations are bankrupt.
What event brought about this bankruptcy?
Well, bankruptcy for this country has been going on since we started going to war and colonising everywhere. But bankruptcy can be brought on by world wars, by catastrophes, or by writing large numbers of bonds as sureties for banks.
Is that something that's been happening recently?
About 63 trillion of them.
63 trillion pounds or dollars?
Dollars.
So the currency that gets issued at the Bank of England, if it's not backed by gold or silver, does that mean that we, standing here, are actually the treasure?
Absolutely. We are the gold.
So how does that play out in terms of our debts and all of the things that are happening around us?
Well, for instance, I think we're having the Olympic Games here in 2012 in London.
That's absolutely right.
And the last time I looked, the government didn't have any money. So what does it do? It issues some bonds or some treasury bills or some treasury notes or some treasury bonds, which are bought by investors. And that money goes back into the economy in order to pay for the people to build the National Stadium, for instance, the Olympic Stadium.
So we're paying for the Olympic Games.
Of course we are. And some people say that wouldn't be a bad thing. But unfortunately, you're paying taxes for the privilege of using somebody else's currency and paying back the principal and the interest on the original loan that was given against the treasury bonds, the treasury bills and the treasury notes. So ultimately, when the Olympic Stadium has been built, the men and women of Britain have used their own resources to build a stadium that doesn't belong to them and paid the privilege, the principal and the interest on the original loan, plus the taxes for the privilege of using somebody else's fiat monetary system.
There's a lot of information there that you've just mentioned. Let me just break that down a little bit. So what you're actually saying is that a private corporation will actually own the Olympic Stadium. A private corporation will be responsible for the running of the Olympic Games and will be able to sell commercial rights Yet we, the people, are actually the ones that own it and that should be profiting from that.
But even if we did own it, you've still paid the principal and the interest back to the people that originally bought the Treasury bonds and the Treasury bills that were sold by the Bank of England in order to raise the money.
That's quite an interesting perspective on things. Why is it that this information is not more readily available in the public?
Because we don't get time. And our education system doesn't furnish people with this information readily.
Where can viewers that are watching this get more information about these kind of subjects?
Well, we'll give you a list and a few PowerPoint slides that you can put up on.
Fantastic. That would be great.
All the references that we covered today will be available through your TV program.
Are you planning on doing any talks or presentations about this in the future?
Well, we've been running presentations, not just about the historical perspective and how this system was put in place, but giving people practical solutions about how they can operate as a creditor in the bankruptcy.
Yeah, I think that's something that we'll be looking at a little bit later in the show. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Adrian.
What you're going to see tonight is 819 years of history. I'm not all there, I promise you. But very key aspects of this history that's led us to where we are now. So, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to take a conspiracy, and I hope you all know what conspiracy theory is, I presume you all do, and we're going to turn it into fact. Real fact, you can go and check out. I don't want you to believe a word I'm saying tonight. Absolutely, I want you to go and check this stuff out for yourself. When you check it out, you will suddenly find that there is a lot of truth out there, you just got to know where to look.
Right, this is the document. This is unbelievable. Right, this is, you've all seen this, yeah? You know what this is, yeah? Birth certificate. Right. You get a certified copy, you do not get the original, because that goes somewhere else. This up here, when you actually look at this, you look at this, and you get your own. When you get home, or you get your kids, whatever, get this document and look at it, because it's phenomenal what they've done. The name of the person's being created in capitalised surname. See, the surname's in capitals, okay? It's a fiction. This is being created. That fiction is going to be created there. But what they need is, they need another fiction to do it. They have to have a fiction there to do this, who is the informant. You actually inform on your own children. Do you know that? You inform on them. It's brilliant, isn't it? Eh? And your qualification is, you're one of their parents. Mad. Mad. And it's capitalised, it's all capitalised. And it is absolutely true. Look at your birth certificate, informant, the qualification needed, and it will say needed, and you inform because you are the father or the mother. What you don't know is that at the bottom there is a declaration. Now a declaration is in common law. A declaration is a sworn oath of a man. And there's a reason that's on the bottom. Because without that man or woman being present, the fictitious mother or father isn't present. Now you're seeing that the person is attached to the human being. But to do this, they need the human being to be there. That's why there's a declaration at the bottom of it. And this, it says it quite simply. You have to be present to represent the person needed to create the new person's legal personality. I know it's a tongue, believe me, it's mind-boggling, but it really is. This is what we found. And it all makes sense. That's the point. This is what I want to tell you about it. And then you register it to a corporation. The General Register Office. Get your birth certificate and lift it up and you'll see GRO. It's the General Register Office. That's who you're registering it to. Registration and your children. And this is not funny. This is really, really true. Okay? To this day, registration still means the same thing. You hand over or you transfer the legal title to the body you have registered it with. As you have seen, the worst possible way this has been done is by the birth certificate. It's been abused. A simple show of this is do you have to mandatory school your children? Well, you do. And can you take them on holiday when you want to? No. Because what happens when you take them out at term time? I know people have received £100 fines for taking their kids out at term time, taking them on holiday. And they have to be vaccinated. The thing is, it's their property. You signed over title ownership of that child to the government when you registered it. You've got no claim to your children whatsoever. You just don't know it because you've been duped. If you want proof of it, the social services. What happens when you don't look after their property or they pertain you're not looking after their property properly? What happens? They take the child away. Because politics is not what you think it is. The members of Parliament. Anybody seen this before? This is Dun & Bradstreet. Do you know what Dun & Bradstreet is? Right. If you were going to do business with a corporation or a company in the world, then you can use Dun & Bradstreet, which at the moment is about 160 million corporations worldwide. You can use these to find out if that corporation does good business. Does it have any debts? Has it got any county court judgments against it? So what this is a register of corporations, of companies. And the members of Parliament are a company. Gordon Brown is a company. David Cameron is a company. And this one I like. The Labour Party trade as Alistair Darling MP. It's their trading name. It's just there. The reason they trade with Alistair Darling MP is because Alistair Darling is a diplomat. There's about 3 of them. If they trade in his name, that trading name has diplomatic status. That means they can bend things and do things that you don't know about. It's a whole different way of doing things. This is what politics is about. This is what you believe to be the people representing you. The United Kingdom is a corporation. Now, up till February of last year, it was United Kingdom PLC. In February, and it's dissolved, and they've never, ever published their accounts. If you want to check that out, go on Companies House, because it's there. But on Dun & Bradstreet, they're now registered as United Kingdom Corporation Limited. Any corporation has employees. The employees are not just civil servants, they're all of you. Every one of you. If you have a national insurance number, that means you too are an employee. Company policy of this corporation requires you as an employee to pay tax, follow all the legislative rules of that corporation, in this case, statutes. As in any company, if you break the rules, you will be disciplined under that company's legislation. The police